Alright, so we're back here at the 7.5 horse Wheel Monroe station I take care of, that I've been working on for a couple of years. This station's not suction lift, and I'll show you why, but it is relay start. Our decoder's down there. This is a Monroe works with baseline, so this is a baseline 3200 controller, 2-wire, about 60 zones, bunch of soil moisture sensors. It's just a kind of a network of things. So when I first started working on this, I thought this thing was just suction lift, and I was questionable, but it always worked, and I wasn't going to reinvent the wheel here. But then I found something. They had a 2-horse submersible pump that ran off a separate decoder and just had a contactor in here. So last winter, I told them we should get this thing actually into a fused disconnect, and then with an HOA switch, so I can toggle this thing off and on. So I can do that. But really, so that's an auto. So the reason this thing has the overloads are out of it, this pumps or the motor's at the end of its life, so this thing will draw in rush of about 30 amps. So it's not going to be, it's not going to be long for this world. But at least, if we blow a fuse now, we'll just know, hey, it's time to replace the pump. So that's what's going on in there. So this is the master HOA switch for this. So this is off, auto, and then you obviously saw manual and start. So let's see how this thing operates. So this pump has 2 HOA switches. The second one is for that dock submersible, the one we just looked at. I don't know if you could hear that. So this HOA switch runs as a slave to their HOA switch. So if the other HOA switch is in off, this one will not work. But this will run in hand-off auto. And then the lower one is the hand-off auto for the Monroe station. And then we have this, there's a vacuum pump in the back. I'm not going to get into that right now. It's redundant since we have the submersible. So this decoder was always here. Now it's mounted. So the way this thing works is that there is 24 volt power coming off the power supply. And then it comes up. Power's on in this. It comes up through the blue wire, and then normally what will happen is if it's in hand, orange wire will go back to the VFD or Yaskawa. If it's in auto, then it's going to go down the brown wire, and then the brown wire goes down, and then this decoder is not like a station decoder where it's going to put out 24 volts and energize a solenoid. This is just a relay. It's a normally open relay. There might be a set of normally closed, I don't know, but for our intents we use this normally open, and it'll do this little blink test. So what it does is there's our brown wire coming into our junction block, and then our brown wire also goes, remember that's 24 volt positive, also goes up in this right hand time delay relay. So what happens is when the controller wants to water, is that it sends power to this coil, 24 volt DC, that starts the submersible pump when this switch is in auto, or that one's in auto. They basically both have to be in auto, and they'll start this, and it'll allow the pump to start. The other thing that's going to happen is it's going to send power to this time delay relay, and then the power's jumped to the switch function, so I think it's ES, and then it comes over to, this is the inlet side of a little vertical stack, and it comes up, and it basically comes with this little pressure switch. This little pressure switch is only good for like 5 to 10 psi. It is not your standard 2040 or 4060. So as soon as that has power, or as soon as that circuit's completed, and that thing closes, then it sends a signal back in to B1, and then basically the time delay relay now waits, and it waits 10 seconds, and then after 10 seconds, it's going to close the circuit. From there, that brown wire is going to come back here. It's going to turn into black wire. It's going to come over to, I believe that's for PLC. Excuse me. And then it's going to start. The VFD is going to ramp. Now, what can happen is, if this can't keep up, so let's say this thing will come up to about 30 psi, and if it drops back down to 0 and that switch closes, it stops the VFD. The VFD slows down. Remember, it's going to just come back down. And then as soon as the dock pump or the submersible catches up, then the switch will close, this will come back up, and it'll start again. It works beautifully, because before, this thing was cavitating. And you might say, well, why not just integrate all this? Well, this is a 12-year-old system, so yeah, we could probably get a panel in here for 50 grand, but you know, this is not 50 grand worth of work. This is just making this thing work a little bit cleaner and nicer. The other part is on the baseline. It's a lot easier to program one decoder than it is to get two decoders and remember what their addresses are. So it also simplifies this and makes that controller basically tell this station I want to run, and then the station does the logic from there. In my opinion, that's easier. So let's see how this thing actually works. Okay, so starting this, you can see I've got about 0 psi, and you can see just how light that thing is. So I'm going to start this because I want to show you how this thing goes. So we're at 0 psi, so we don't have any pressure to start this pump yet, because we need that submersible pump to get water up to us first, to get positive pressure to that inlet side of that pump. So I'm going to make sure that both my pumps are in manual. This is a potentiometer for the VFD. We're not going to screw with that. Okay, so we have, you can see the output of our decoder. You can see the green light here. So we have a call for a run signal. You can see our contactors pulled in. Okay, now remember, when this powers on, this wakes up. Now it's green, it's waiting. Now obviously I want to slow everything down, so I put I put a sticky note in here. So we have about 20 psi of water. And remember, I'm running a zone, so I'm trying to push water, and we're pushing, I guess we're pushing nothing, but let's go ahead and let's pull this. Okay, so that's our blue light. And see that thing is blinking green? So it's going to wait. It's going to count 10 seconds. And then there goes the drive. Now, I don't know if you heard that cycle or click, but what just happened is the pump took off pretty fast and it exceeded the pressure. Okay, just did it again. So the first couple of times, when this thing wakes up, okay, so it took it 3 times before it could sustain. And what I mean by sustain is, it took it 3 times, so basically that pump kicked on so fast, it dropped it down to 0, so it's not going to cavitate anymore. Now, is that the best way to do this? I don't know, you tell me. But if I turn off, let's say I lose my dock submersible pump, now we have no more run signal. Actually, we do. But see, what's going to happen is that main pump can't run without that dock submersible, so it could kind of run. It can kind of do suction lift, but now I've just got the dock submersible back on auto. So what should happen is now that should be able to stay running. So that was all the work and logic to make this thing run as one unit. But mechanically, to me, it's simple. So you can see now we're moving water. The blue light for that left-hand relay, it basically just tells you if the main station's not running, it just tells you that it's got a run signal and it's waiting. So there we go.